virtual event with Calyptus. I am Dan, the CEO co-founder at Calyptus. And if you don't know who we are Web3's #1 recruitment platform, trusted by the likes of Circle, Chainlink, and Aave. We use AI to help find top candidates 4 times faster. Now, I'm incredibly excited to have Jim with us. We're going to be covering all things AI and the future of hiring. The background to this was a conversation that we had on our Web3 People Leaders community, which we run aside to Calyptus. And we run a survey to try and understand how people are using AI. What we found was about 90% of our community felt like they did not have enough time to learn AI to help improve their process and productivity. So I went on a personal mission to try and find the best person who could demystify this space for us. And that's where I found Jim. Jim is the VP of People and Talent at Ashby, one of the leading application tracking systems globally for HR professionals. And he brings to the table 15 years of experience at Google, where he was the global head for online talent channels. Guys, we have a lot to unpack. Please, if you have any questions at all, chuck them in the chat on YouTube, on LinkedIn, on Twitter, and we will try and get through them. After our conversation with Jim, we're going to have Nishant, who's our head of DevRel, who is going to do a walkthrough of building an AI hiring agent, which was built for you guys. And then you can completely do with it what you will, download it, and use it for yourselves. Without further ado, Jim, how are you doing?
Very well, thank you. Lovely to be here.
Yes, well, I'm very glad that you wore your favorite UK-based shirt. Can you just tell everyone what's on it?
We've got London taxi cabs, old style London taxi cabs today. If I'm not wearing some kind of mad shirt, then people worry about me.
It's stunning. Is it vintage?
Yes, very much so. 2014, I think.
Well, you know, Jim, when we first had our conversation and I reached out to you, I instantly knew you were the person that we're going to bring onto this call, because you were already breaking down the agenda for the event before I had even nailed it down. And the first thing you said, which was really, really important, was about the differences, and that's distinguishing the likes of what AI actually is and isn't. Because there is AI, machine learning, there's automation. And just to start, I suppose, with the utter basics, you know, can you please break us down what these 3 things are? And if you can, include some examples.
Sure. I think it's really important to understand that not everything called AI is truly AI. First of all, many things are just pure automation, an automation of manual, predetermined, predefined, repetitive tasks. So that might just be, in ATS speak, a stage transition. So if the recruiter likes a candidate after the first call and they press one button, there's an automation that happens in the background that takes that candidate through to the next stage and takes all of the actions that are required for that stage to be kicked off. Machine learning is the brute forcing of big data problems. It's teaching a machine to produce accurate results. And an example from, again, the ATS world for that might be scheduling an on-site or final round interview from a pool of interviewers. You go and crunch all of their calendars together and pull back the best available schedule for that particular interview for that particular candidate. And then finally, AI. That's really the creation of something new from a myriad of different information sources. And it's the machine making decisions without explicit programming. So for us, that might be the sourcing outreach functionality that exists in Ashby, where there's personalized messages created by AI before the recruiter or sourcer sends that message out, or even the assistive AI resume review, which I'll touch on in more detail in a bit.
Yeah, so I suppose there are different types of AI, as you mentioned there, like assistive. Can you please kind of break down then, going down the AI channel, you know, what are those differences in AI today? And again, some examples would be great.
Absolutely. And everything I'm speaking about really is the TA and people operations tech space. There's three areas that I see most of the attention being on. And the first is where all the noise is, and that's selective AI. So that's AI who is telling you, here are the 5 candidates from your talent pool that you should hire for this job. Here are the top ranked candidates. There's obviously a huge amount of potential for bias there. Most of the conversations I hear are around the bias in AI because of these types of systems. And there's potential flaws there from the material that those systems are trained on. And there's also legislation issues as well. And I'm no lawyer, but we'll touch on a couple of those later on. And then what we talk about most is assistive AI. And we don't have any selective AI in Ashby, an applicant tracking system. So first of all, I probably need to do a little bit of myth busting. There is no algorithm to beat. There is a human in the loop. It's a time-saving device. It's, as I say, human in the loop, human decision, human pressing a button. And as one of our customers mentioned the other day on a post they made, it's in addition to humans, not instead of. And there's no selection, there's no learning, and therefore no bias on that side of things. To give you an example of that assistive technology, if you're looking for an account executive to sell your software and they've got B2B SaaS sales experience, that's your criteria. By the time you get to the resumes, the system will have indexed those resumes and will tell you this company that this person worked at when they were an account executive is a B2B SaaS company. Here's the citation of the evidence. So instead of the human needing to go to LinkedIn, Crunchbase to Google that, because they don't know all the company names, the work's been done for them before they land, and they can make a much faster decision. It's time saving, it's assistive. And then the final one of the 3 that we talk about a lot is predictive AI. And that's all about the data. This is the area that I'm really, really excited about for the future. We're not quite there yet, but I imagine in the future you will have the capability to use AI to do a predictive headcount plan for your company based on your historical growth data, finance data, headcount planning data, and so on. And it spits back a result for you. And that's going to be really interesting kind of work that comes downstream.
Now, as you mentioned there, like a lot of it is down to time saving for us as humans. I suppose from a wider philosophical question, does AI always create productivity today? Is there an argument you're conscious of that AI might make us worse off, especially in recruitment?
I think, first of all, there's an intentionality piece around implementation. So you deploy technology and you've made a business case that this technology is going to give you an ROI. And for the most part, that ROI is time saving. That time is the basis of the conversation. If you're going to implement any solution, be it AI, machine learning, automation, or a combination thereof, you've got to be intentional about how you're going to use that time post-implementation. Parkinson's law of productivity stated that work will fill the time allocated for a task. And if you think about that, if you save the time for a group of employees, it's likely that they will fill that time saving with work that historically wasn't the priority. Ask yourself the question, therefore, is that the return on investment that you were looking for? It's probably not. So you have to quantify in advance what you're going to do with that time and strictly adhere to that. Now, sadly, from a human perspective, in most cases, the expectation is the ROI is a savings, cash savings in labor cost. But it doesn't have to be that way. It could be that you are reinvesting that time in creating a better candidate experience, hiring higher quality employees from your hiring process, a more representative workforce. There's lots of positives that can be built from that time saved. But to answer your question, the impact of it can be negative if you haven't, first of all, quantified what the expectation is and how you will repurpose that time.
That's super interesting. It is such a fallacy, isn't it, that you would fill your time regardless, of whether it's a deadline and you're a student, to even today with any work. So is AI actually adding that extra on top for how much work you get done? I think you need a combination of 2: time management, expectation, and using the right tools. But yeah, moving on to, I suppose, the breakdown of AI into hiring, because there are different stages in hiring. We have, of course, the life cycle from starting with finding candidates through to then reviewing candidates, through to then actually hiring the candidate. We start with sourcing and outreach, where AI can be helpful. We then have reviewing, so looking through CVs and LinkedIn profiles, where AI can be helpful. The likes of scheduling interviews, actually then being on the interview, either note taking, providing deep insights, scoring, and even running the interview itself. So that's the full life cycle. If we start from step one, where are we seeing AI help with sourcing candidates today?
So there's a bunch of selective AI out there that crunch massive amounts of data from the outside world, and pull those candidates to you in order to then reach out to those folks. So that's one interesting space. On our side, it's the contact. It's about that time saving piece. So two elements there. One is natural language search to avoid the need to be a Boolean operator expert. I built most of my career out of being able to do that. So I'm immediately a dinosaur in that sense. So that's really interesting. For us, that's internal candidate database search with natural language, but it's incredibly powerful. And then there's the personalization outreach writing, which is, that creative writing we see a lot from the LLMs, but it's taking the information, the contextual information about the candidate and the job, and writing a personalization element into that outreach. So it's very much akin to the work that a BDR or SDR would do in a company who's trying to drive sales by writing email outreach. And it's the work that sources have done for years, and the best sources have always tried to personalize and target their messages. Now, for me, in the position I'm in, I get to be kind of chief tester to a certain extent, and I time everything. I'm 10 times faster sending sourcing messages thanks to this technology than I was before. And our data shows across the hundreds of thousands of millions of these messages that are sent by our customers that they are 37% more responded to. So you've got a force multiplication factor from the technology in the first place and an effectiveness increase. You compound those two together, and that's an enormous impact. There's real ROI from that. You move further into the life cycle. We talked about resume review, and that was one of the key areas. And you introduced my previous job title at Google, online channels globally. That's the team that read all the resumes and wrote the job descriptions and so on. So this is kind of the core to the work that I'd been doing for the kind of between 2015 and 2021. And so this is my space. And I was honestly so surprised at the solution that we came up with for this. And I hadn't ever thought about it being that way around. And the nature of this being assistive. The human being writes the objective criteria that would be in their head when they were reading the 1,000 applications that have come in for this job. But they write these objective criteria step by step, once at the job level. And if there's multiple recruiters working on it, they write those together so they get one objective set of criteria for this job before they've even read a resume. And then the system, the ATS, Ashby's ATS, indexes those resumes as they're coming in and leaves the citations of evidence as to whether the person meets or does not meet that specific objective criteria written by the human. And when the human gets to that resume, they can see the citations and the evidence. It draws them quickly to that information in the resume, and the human makes a decision as to whether this person is right for the role or not right for the role. But they're now able to be that much more accurate and consistent. And because they're not having to do any tertiary searches, we mentioned the B2B SaaS piece earlier. No one knows all of the names of these SaaS companies and what they do, or any company really. And you don't have to go through the whole of the resume because it's drawing your attention to the right information. You can quickly get to a decision. And this is critical because it means you can get to the whole of your talent pool. For years, recruiters have never had enough time. And you see it externally in commentary from careers coaches and so on. You've got to be in the first 100 applications. That's no longer true if Ashby is the ATS behind the scenes, because the Ashby user can get to all of the applications that much faster. And the downstream implication of this is, instead of only looking at the first 100, looking at the whole pool, you're therefore statistically much more likely, you're going to see the resumes from the best applicants across any demographic as well. So you end up increasing the quality and the representation of your workforce. Rather than just hiring the first person, you hire the best person. And this functionality gives you that advantage, that capability. Going deeper into the process, interviews and feedback, there's the interview transcription technology there, but there's also the feedback summaries. It enables the people making decisions about hiring to get deeply into the data and the details around feedback, pull out the key citations again and the evidence and make decisions. But there's also a really nice flip on that. Because of the summarization of feedback, that can be fed back to the candidates, because traditionally recruiters have not had time to be able to give full, customized, personalized feedback to every candidate. We should be, but we've never got the resources within a TA team to be able to do that. And now we've got the functionality released to enable you to get that feedback back to the candidates, enhancing their future job searches and enhancing their capability of having a fruitful career. And the functionality continues all the way through the process, again, into scheduling and the time savings that can happen there, but also the avoidance of error. One piece of amazing functionality is that the calendars are monitored for people who've accepted to interview somebody. And if they later decline in the calendar, often the user's assumption is that will flow through into the ATS, but it pretty much doesn't in most systems. Now it monitors and replaces that interviewer and then informs the recruiter to make sure there's no break in service for the candidate and there's no surprises when it gets to interview day. So all of this strung together is incredible, and there's a plethora of other use cases that we're seeing from point solutions as well.
Yeah, I mean, I guess if you're having something at every single stage that is around AI automation, you're going to have these kind of incremental, if not compounding, kind of benefits. Are you seeing this kind of impact? Obviously, Ashby does this end to end, but are you seeing this where for clients they're having this exponential gain almost because each stage is being pushed even further?
Yeah, I'm seeing it in my own team. I'm seeing it in customers. I've just had the privilege of interviewing a whole batch of customers for our showreel for our Ashby One conference, which is happening next week. And I sat with one person who's the head of TA at a company, and he said to me, in 2021, we had a record hiring year of 225 new hires with 30 people in the TA organization. Last year, we hired 300 people with 5 people in TA, and we had better candidate experience scores, more time spent with candidate experience, higher quality of hires, and less time to fill. And that's a compound impact of this technology going on.
We have a question here.
Sure. I can read this. Sorry, I think I spoke over you.
That's all right. From Amar here, he said, what about CV ranking and gap analysis?
As I said at the beginning, CV ranking, that's selective AI. We don't have any of that. Our focus is on assistive AI. It's on time saving for recruiters. There's a whole bunch of different legislation for anything that is doing selection, and that's not within our suite there. So there are point solutions that advertise their capability to do that, but that's not within our suite. For LLM usage, depending on which piece of functionality, there are multiple different that we source from. There's a whole bunch of documentation on our website, and we also have the API and integrations information on our website as well, ashby@hq.com.
I do think, Emma, this is a really interesting space, especially around the CV software side of things. There's a great commentator called Andrew Ng who has really pushed and put forward agentic document extraction versus the typical parsers that just get things completely wrong. Ashby have upped their game completely versus the ones that are more traditional. But I think we're going to see a huge amount of disruption here as agentic processes start genuinely understanding what's happening in the CVs, so they can be ranked better, as opposed to just your really static, classic kind of keyword matching and doing a CV score and rank. There's so much more depth there now that AI can bring to the table.
There is, if legislation allows it. That's what's actually holding back some of the innovation in that space.
The T's and C's.
Yeah.
And what third-party integrations are available, again, from Amar?
Again, we've got like open integrations, open AI API on our website. You can go there, and then there's a whole ton of partners to Ashby on our website listed. Too many to go into to answer here.
We can't get through all of them, but there are a lot. Great. I mean, Jim, there's something around this, which is the wider business implications. I suppose you touched upon it there, which is you now have small HR teams completing a huge amount of work with certain AI solutions now. What are the ways in which AI is transforming, almost from a strategic point of view, how businesses need to think, whether it's on headcount or costs or anything?
My first point is actually about owning the story. If you're the head of TA or the head of people at a company right now, someone is selling AI software to replace you and your team to your CFO right now. You have to own your story. You have to own the intentional implementation story, what you plan to implement, what the outcomes are going to be, what the ROI is, what the legislation means is the right thing to do, and not creating business risk for your company. You have to be building that now if you're serious about the job that you do, before somebody else comes and tells your story to people that can make a decision about your job, your livelihood. That's key. So understanding I know at the top of this, you said people don't have the time. You've got to find the time. Hopefully this is useful. Understanding there are platforms out there, be it TA, people, other departments, customer success, sales, etc., engineering even, where the products are out there with the functionality that can support your business. And you've got to talk about what it will be to implement, what the costs will be, what the impact on your workforce will be, and the downstream impact of that implementation for your company, be it higher quality, less labor costs, or any of these things. It's akin to the introduction of the combine harvester in agriculture. In 1800, it took an entire family, and they had massive families, a whole day to harvest their corn crop. Now it takes one person in a combine harvester 3 seconds. The owner of the farm had that model, that vision, and built that. You're the owner of that space. If you lead the TA function, if you're the head of people, you've got to build, design, and create this intentionally, and then tell that story. The downstream impact of this is that you will become the poster child for your company of effective deployment of AI, and you'll become the benchmark. Because what I'm seeing elsewhere in the business is an unequal deployment of AI. We're seeing it in sales, for example, where AI augmented sales teams, AI BDRs, these kinds of roles exist. And we see sales teams having enormous production spikes. But then you've got customer success, customer support, customer services organizations who haven't got that type of technology deployed. And they're being overwhelmed because historically, the headcount plans to map these organizations to the work that needs to be done were based on ratios. Think about it. If you don't need as many people in sales, but they 10x their selling capability because of technology, you can no longer anchor that ratio model through to how many people you need in customer support. You run the risk of reputational damage to your business because your sales department is being too successful thanks to the deployment of technology. So again, if you're in the people seat, be it TA or overall people, you've got the overview of all of the interdependencies in the different departments. You're one of only probably 4 or 5 roles in a company that sees everything. You've got to be understanding what's happening in the AI landscape, automation, machine learning across each of these functions and the implications, because you're going to have a less is more situation. You need less salespeople, but far more support people. And your old benchmarking models are just not going to cut it anymore. So you have a key responsibility to write your own story, to get that gravitas, that respect within your company, and then help them understand those interdependencies and the criticality of understanding how the implementations of these systems are going to work.
That's a lovely note to finish on there. I love that analogy of the combine harvester. And definitely, if you can be the proponent in your company that's pushing AI, you are the one that's going to be, like you mentioned, the poster child to make the company better. Try and transform some of the more senior execs who might be stuck on a different way of thinking and really push, a new way of thinking. You mentioned their sales teams. We actually use a AI agent service called Topo. Fantastic at finding us kind of leads and emailing and making it very productive and tailored. And that's in sales. So how can the different departments make sure that they are really going after using AI to their advantages and not being the department that's left out?
Yeah.
We have a question here again from Amar. Can you advise how the solution takes the operator from a job spec to outreach?
I think this is sourcing focused. So job descriptions currently are still created in the traditional way, hiring manager, TA team in working together. Depending on what systems you've deployed for sourcing functionality, whether you're sourcing on LinkedIn yourself or using a third-party tool, a point solution to go and do sourcing with, at that point, the AI is kicking in to help with the personalization, contextual information from that job description and from the profile of the person, be it on LinkedIn or the resumes they've provided to you or any other service. Indeed, for example. So you've got I'm assuming you're saying Indeed, the job board, not Indeed. I'm right in saying, so I'll assume that. So yes, you can go and source. The ATS is writing the outreach. And that's a fundamental difference to how things historically were done. As a TA leader, I couldn't tell you the number of times there's been an argument between 2 different TA folks who've both reached out to the same high quality candidate on the same day because they haven't seen what the other person is doing. Now with the ATS writing that information, it's stored as a point of record in the ATS. And it doesn't need somebody copying and pasting back from LinkedIn or from Indeed or from an email system back to the ATS and having to remember to do that. So that's a key element. Everything is structured within a template, and then you have the AI functionality creating the personalization and targeting message.
That's super important, making it all in one so it can all just be kept up to date and tracked and transparent across teams. 100%. The amount of times that can happen in recruiter teams where they're going after the same candidate or they've got the same relationships and suddenly there's conflict to make sure that everyone's on the same track and synchronized. I know HR Tech is really moving that way, and Ashby's they're definitely pushing it forward. Guys, do you have any more questions? Because otherwise, we're about to jump into our very own hiring agent being built. I think we have one more question from Amar. Thanks for all the questions, Amar.
And a copy generation for TA. So the second question is, whatever platform you want to interact with, you can do sourcing. And then the AI within the ATS will create copy for you within the structure of a template that you preset. So for example, I might have a template for a particular job. It introduces the job, it shows the job description. There's a token for the personalization. Underneath that, a public booking link to enable the candidate to book directly with the first interviewer for that job. And then thank you very much for your time, end of the template. The the key point there is you've got sourcing and scheduling and AI technology and automation all working in unison together, because it's an all-in-one end-to-end platform: CRM, ATS, scheduling, data analytics, and so on. Each of these pieces can work natively together to produce these outcomes. So yeah, that's the gist of it.
Brilliant. Thanks, Jim. Well, without further ado, we do have now a walkthrough on a hiring agent that our head of DevRel, Nishant, has built, which you guys can use today. And we're making it free afterwards. Just going to bring Nishant to the stage. Hello, Nishant. How are you doing?
Hey, guys. I'm doing all right. How are you guys doing?
Doing all right. We better get your screen up for everyone. Either from Nishant's or Shifu's side. Perfect. Okay, brilliant.
All right. So, hello, guys. My name is Nishant, and this is the part where we see an agentic bot in action. This bot, let me walk through what this bot does for you. It is basically a bot that has access to your Gmail inbox, and every 1 minute it goes through your inboxes and searches for new emails that have this specific tag which says candidate in the subject. And if your inbox has such emails, it will go through all the emails and read the subjects. And what it does is, firstly, it classifies those emails into 5 of these broad categories, which are new application, screening, interviewing, offer stage, or closed. Once it has categorized the email, or basically the stage at which that specific candidate is, it goes to a Google Sheet and creates a new row in that Google Sheet, and it fills in the information like his name, his details, the date, and the stage at which he is, and other information that were included in the email. And once it has done that, what it also does is it labels that specific email as a candidate email. Now, if that same candidate or if that same source messages you again with an update, what this bot does is it kind of changes the stage from, let's say, new application to screening or interviewing, goes to the Google Sheet and updates that specific entry to kind of say that this specific candidate is now interviewing. So basically what happens is gradually you kind of are automatically creating a database where you are tracking all the emails that you're receiving from all your candidates. And if, let's say, you have an email that is not related to hiring, what it does is it marks them as non-candidate email. So what happens is you can go to your inbox, see these labels, and click on them and kind of have all these relevant emails at once listed here. Let's see this in action. Let's say this is my another account, which we will assume that is an account used by a candidate or a system that kind of represents this candidate and sends emails to you. Let us send an email to Nishant, whose Gmail the bot is tracking. And what it says is it's a candidate email, and Nishant's job update. This is an email that is related to Nishant's job update. Nishant Singh has applied to a job for the role of software engineer. And let's send this email. Now, what's supposed to happen is once I get this email in my inbox, this specific agent, so this is the agent that is doing the job. This agent is created in a platform called N8N, which is a great platform. It's a GUI tool, so you can drag and drop different tools and combine them to, kind of get the action you want to get done by the bot. And there are more tools like N8N, for example, Make or Zapier, which are also equally good. So you can kind of pick and choose your tools. Let's see if we have received the inbox, which we have, and you can see what mm, 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 the message is here, the email is here. Now, what the bot will do is it will go through this email and do its job. This bot is programmed to do it every 1 minute, so it might take a sec to do this.
And Nishan, why do you prefer, I suppose, NA10 to the other platforms?
It is kind of equally good. The best part about N8N is it is not limited to a beginner tool. It is a GUI tool, but if you want, if you are capable, you can also kind of integrate some level of programming in it. So it is a very flexible tool, equally good for beginners as well as people who want more flexibility.
Nice.
All right, so it seems like the bot has done its job. And if we go to the inbox, we see here that the candidate the your email has been updated to this label, which is candidate update. So the bot has labeled it here. And what the bot has also done is it has added a row here, which says Nishan Singh has applied for a job called software engineer, and he is at a stage of new applicant. And this is the rest of the message that was included in the email. Now, let's say if the same candidate or if the same system representing the candidate sends an update related to this job, and it says Nishant has been promoted to the interviewing stage. And again, we will wait for 1 minute for the bot to go through the inbox and kind of, do its part. Meanwhile, what I can show you is how you can recreate the same agent in your own N8N environment. So how you do it is that I'll also show you how you can export this so that you can share it with your colleagues or friends. So all you have to do is you have to download this workflow. When you do this, you get a JSON file which has all the details related to this bot. And if you want to implement that specific file, which we are at the end of this session going to share with you guys, all you have to do is you have to go to your dashboard, your home page of N8N, create a workflow or start from scratch, whichever one you like, it doesn't matter. And you go here and you click on import from file and use this specific file, and boom, you have the whole workflow. And then all you have to do is you have to go through these individual nodes which are related to Gmail and click here on the credentials, add new credentials, and sign in with Google. Now, keep in mind you have to sign in with the same account you want the bot to track. And you have to go to the sheets add a sheet that you have already created, and do the same thing here. Add a credential and log in through Google. And the third and last thing you have to do is you have to, as because this is an AI agent, the intelligence has to come from somewhere, right? So in this specific agent, it is coming from OpenAI, which is kind of the company that is the parent company of ChatGPT. You have to go here and again go to add credentials and put your OpenAI API key here. And once you do these three things, your agent is good to go. While you're on this interface, what you can also do is click here and go through the system message, which is in plain English. And the system message is basically the message that is guiding the bot to do the things it is doing. So all the steps, all the processes, all the tools it is using is mentioned as in this system message in plain English. So you can read this message and kind of get an idea of how it is functioning. But what you can also do is you can edit this and ask it to do a few more things or a few things differently. So it is very customizable, and customization is easy because it is in English, not in a programming language. All right. So
Hey,
I think, yeah.
nice. So it went to interviewing stage at the end there. It worked.
Yep, it did. Thank God.
Yeah. No, that's perfect. You know, but thank you, Nishan. That was a great walkthrough. And for people who really want to tinker with AI truly for themselves and build their own agents because you're just curious and interested, this is the way to do it. Nishan, what's the best way to get it to everyone? They can email us at info@calyptus.co and we can send it to them afterwards. What's the...
Yes, or a better way would be we set up a GitHub account and it hosts this whole file, so anyone can click on this link which we post after this event in a message section or something, and they click there and just download the thing.
We can put it on LinkedIn and Twitter so all of you guys can see it. Perfect. All right. Nishan, thank you very much for that. Guys, thank you all so much for attending. I truly hope this talk on AI and talent recruitment was really helpful. Please, please, please make sure to also follow Jim on LinkedIn. He has probably the best URL going. It's Jim with about 20 M's in it.
It's JM. There's no I. It's J20M. But J and 20 M's. But yeah, people shorten it to J20M. It wraps all the way around the back of my physical business card.
Or just look up Jim Miller Ashby on LinkedIn and make sure to add him if you want to stay up to date on all things HR tech. Make sure to add myself, Calyptus, Ashby, the whole lot. Thank you so much, guys, for attending this. I hope it's been super insightful for you as it has been for myself. And Jim, I hope we have you on again in the not too distant future.
That'd be great. I'll find a new shirt for that one.
I can't wait. Cheers, guys. All the best.